Welcome back. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce and other global business groups are urging President Biden to reverse his decision on pausing approvals for pending and future liquefied natural gas exports. The president did this last week. Biden announced the move Friday officially, saying we will take a hard look at the impact of LNG exports on energy costs, America's energy security, and our environment. This pause on new LNG approvals sees the climate crisis for what it is, the existential threat of our time, said President Biden. The president made his plans for American energy and fossil fuels clear while on the campaign trail. Here's what he had to say back in 2019. Remember this?
I want you to look in my eyes. I guarantee you, we're going to end fossil fuel.
And he is moving to do so. Last year, the U.S. became the world's top LNG exporter. Joining me right now is former Energy Secretary and former Texas Governor Rick Perry. Governor, good to see you this morning. Thank you so much for being here. Give us your reaction to Biden's new policy on LNG.
Well, this is wrong in so many different ways, the least of which is not that if those young people that are responding to this TikTok influencer, who obviously the president is listening to, really believe that stopping American clean-burning liquefied natural gas from coming out into the world global market, if you will, and removing older, inefficient coal-burning power plants, somehow or another, that's just absolutely 180 degrees from what they would say. But that's what the reality is. So if these young people do care about the climate, you need to be supporting American LNG going out in the market and helping address the climate. The other side of this, and this one is more of a moral issue, you're basically telling all of those people in Africa and countries that don't have any power, any source to energy, that, sorry, you're just going to live in abject poverty for the rest of your life. You're going to die an early death. So if they really care about the world, the globe, then you need to be for American energy going out into the world, replacing that. That's before we ever get into the geopolitics of what's happening here. I mean, the message to our allies in Europe in particular, who are facing Russia, who has used energy as a weapon for a substantial number of years, is stunningly short-sighted. If you're a European and you are an ally to the United States and to NATO, this message from America is, hey, you're on your own. Good luck.
Yeah. Well, look, the Wall Street Journal out with an op-ed on this. Biden and the TikTok anti-LNG crusade. Just like you said, TikTok, they write this. Press reports say Biden advisor John Podesta pushed for the pause on LNG, which tees up an outright ban after TikTokers and climate lobbyist Bill McKibben made stopping LNG exports a cause célèbre. Mr. Biden's advisors at the White House even met with a TikTok climate influencer. So these are the people making policy decisions on America's energy?
And Joe Biden said that he was going to be the adult to come into the room when he was running for election. This is so bad in so many different ways. You're allowing young people who get on their iPhones and influence people with TikTok to make policy in this country. I mean, what's next? I mean, the idea that the President of the United States is seriously listening to young people, in particular in this world of energy policy, which in turn affects geopolitics, by folks who are more interested in how many hits and clicks they get on their Instagram or TikTok account. That is stunningly immature, for one thing. And it also sends a real message of who's really running the White House today.
Well, it's a great point. And I want to talk about the seriousness of the issue at the border right now, because we've got states, Republican governors, sending their National Guard in to help protect Texas. You've got Texas officials with guns and federal authorities with guns. What are we turning into, a civil war here? Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton is dismissing the Biden administration's demand to have full access to Shelby Park in Eagle Pass. Texas took it over earlier this month, as you know, sparking that standoff between Texas and the administration. And I spoke with the Texas Lieutenant Governor yesterday, Dan Patrick, about the U.S. versus Texas. Is this White House at war with Texas over the Supreme Court's decision on the razor wire? Here he is yesterday on Sunday Morning Futures. Watch.
And Joe Biden and Mayorkas want to come in and cut the wire when we're having success makes no sense to anyone, even the rank and file Border Patrol on the border that we work very well with, Maria. It's just the politicos that he sends in to try to stir the pot. Look, they stood down. They said they're not going to cut the wire, and it's good news for them because they would have needed a lot of wire cutters because we have a whole lot of wire. And if they had snipped it and cut it, we would have replaced it right away. We're going to put wire down the entire border.
Secretary, you're the former governor of Texas. I mean, can you imagine the pictures that will be shot of Biden's people taking down the wire that your officials put up, Governor Abbott's administration put in place to try to stem the flow of illegals into Texas?
Yeah, it is. I never thought that it would come to this when you had an administration that basically is an enemy of a sovereign state of this United States. I mean, this is stunning. I think one of the reasons, and I tip my hat to Governor Abbott and to Governor Patrick for together understanding that, you may not like Texas, Mr. Biden. You may not like Texas, governor and mayor of different cities and states. But here's what we're facing, and shipping these individuals to those areas of the state, Chicago, to New York, to Denver, and basically saying, here's what we're facing down here because of these policies. You may think you're a long way from it, but you're no longer. Here are the people whose lives are being impacted by this. And again, that's one strategy that I happen to think is working, and they need to keep doing it. The other one is we need to send a clear message across this country, whether you're a Democrat or a Republican. The onslaught of people, 25, 30 million people that have been allowed into this country, nobody knows who they are. I mean, the idea that there are not people with bad intent that are coming across the border, we have had literally thousands of smugglers. I'm not talking about people who are being smuggled in. I'm talking about people identified as smugglers of individuals who are bringing people in for money. And it's just out of control. And the Biden administration seems to be empowering it. I mean, whose side are you on, Mr. President?
Yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned that because I spoke with one of my sources at the border yesterday. He told me that they just arrested a cartel smuggling guide who smuggled illegal immigrants into Texas. And guess what? Right now, he's wanted for murder in Mexico. He was just arrested by Texas DPS. Thank you, Texas DPS, for securing the border as much as you can in this environment. Secretary, it's good to see you. Please come back soon. We appreciate your time.
Thank you, Maria.